Hey, what's up everybody? It's Vids, and we're back for some more Mardek, and as we were saying before, we are now primed and ready to go to bring Gloria into her personal arena battle. So, let's talk a little bit about what we've done to set her up, and then we'll jump in. So, she has, of course, the new staff that we were picking up recently, and that is best in slot for her, so no surprises there. I think I'm going to go with her own helmet. It does have high magic defense and +1 spirit. There are a few things you could put here, namely the black hat for 50% dark resistance is also not a bad idea. However, because I'm thinking in our chest plate spot, we're going to use the night jacket, which of course gives us absorb 20% dark. For that reason, the black hat is not as necessary. It would mean that we would absorb more damage from dark hits, but at the same time, I think that's probably not as important as just spreading out those resistances as much as possible. So the reason why I'm using the night jacket here is because it does have very high dark resistance, but a little bit in the way of other resistances as well. The strongest case against using it is that it has precisely 0 physical and magical defenses, so you might find that something else could work better in its place if you're confident that you can get enough resistances elsewhere. Next best would probably be the lesser rainbow shirt, but that doesn't give as much in way of dark resistances, of course. Other than that, as we were talking about before, definitely going to go with the Scarab of Health for some high defense and magic defense here. This sort of makes up for the fact that we have a weak chest plate in that regard. And then 5 Vitality, Auto Regen, and a little bit of resistances for several status effects. And then the last one will be the Yellow Fairy, which again, doesn't have anything in the way of physical or magical defenses, and also doesn't give any resistances, but that auto haste will be huge. Other thing is, I loaded up on a bunch of potions here of just about every variety, including offensive potions. Not necessarily sure that Gloria's going to need those, because she, of course, already has access to earth, water, fire, and air abilities, but also some of the special potions that we were seeing at the shop in Gosnor that restore a combination of HP and MP, HP and getting rid of status effects, other more common status removal potions, NP restoration, life, and all that jazz. So, with that, let's take a look at her skills. So with regard to these, I did spend a little bit more time mastering the physical, offensive, and defensive reactions, so she's a bit to work with there. Of course, magic offensive reactions, she's going to have everything on there. In terms of magic defensive reactions, this is another interesting one, because we do have a lot of options here, but with her having access to robes, which tend to be the types of chest plates that have the most magic defensive reactions, so she has all the generic minus 10, 20, 30% damages there, as well as spell resist, and I'm preferring those over specific elements because we're assuming that we're going to run into many different kinds of enemies, and we will probably see a mixture of fire, water, air, earth, and dark damage, so probably best to get things that are maybe not quite as powerful for one specific type of element, but at least apply across the board, rather than have things like resist water that only apply in very specific circumstances but are otherwise doing precisely nothing. So, of course, if we were able to eke out a little bit more RP, then being able to throw on one more of these would be great. If you do find yourself doing that, then remember that we are loading up on the dark resistance already, so this one is not necessary. In terms of passives, I'm thinking that, again, we're not going to need the dark because, well, we're using the night jacket. So resist earth probably makes the most sense. You could go with resist ether, but although it's nice to have, it's pretty unusual, certainly in comparison to earth damage, so we'll go with earth here. And then Gloria has mastered the rainbow ore ability, so again, this is a way to get a little bit of resistances across the board, 20%. So all in all, that means that she's sitting on 1,349 life, 161 MP, which is a little bit lower than I would like, of course, because she's going to be using a lot of MP as a spellcaster. And then resistances, she will heal to earth and to dark. In terms of other elements, she'll have a little bit of resistances there, but of course, we'll still be taking the brunt of the damage. So that is our setup. Let's talk to the clerk here. Welcome to the arena. Here you can participate in tournaments, where you battle hordes of monsters and maybe other adventures in our special battle cave to win fabulous prizes. Are you interested? Yeah, I'd say so. Okay, so the survival tournament is the one that's for individual people, whereas the champion tournament is for our whole party. So what I'm thinking we want to do is, of course, we're going to start with the survival tournament for Gloria, and then we're going to go person by person until we make it through everyone, and then we'll wrap things up with a dramatic champion tournament, So let's go survival tournament, and then who's going to enter this one? Anyone in your current party is eligible unless they've beaten the tournament once already. So yeah, basically the thing we were talking about earlier where it said you can only do it once, that's just to suggest that you can't go through and complete it multiple times and continue to rack up even more rewards. So we will go with Gloria here. As you wish. Please proceed to the battleground. Okay, so as we saw previously in Chapter 2, we will have round after round, no break in between. So here we go directly into round 1, and it will be just a single fire elemental. Unfortunately, we saw that it missed there. So we of course do have haste, and this is why this is so important, because you see Gloria, then the fire elemental, then more double Glorias. So what we're gonna want to do is we're gonna want to try to preserve NP as much as possible. Problem is, this guy has high physical defenses, so the easiest way to avoid spending NP would be, of course, to use physical attacks. Not really going to work in this case, so we are probably going to need to use Whirlpool, and we hope this has enough damage to take out one turn. Certainly, that is the case. So we'll go straight into the next battle here. No breaks, no time to restore MP or anything of that sort. So round 2, of course, things will presumably get progressively more difficult. And in some ways, these enemies are specifically targeting strengths and weaknesses of a given character, so perhaps not a coincidence that we see all these elementals for Gloria when we know that she has access to any of a number of elements with her spells here. So Razor Leaf should be the best answer against the water elementals. They are weak against earth. So straightforward here, of course that one did manage to get a hit in, but I think that the regen actually restored all of our HP nonetheless. So that one, paying off for us there. Round 3, will the pattern continue? Yes, however, this time, Dark is a little more difficult because the Dark Elemental has 50% resistance to all the types of elements that Gloria would be able to deal damage from. So, for that reason, we might not be able to take this guy out in one hit. Give it a shot, of course, and technically speaking, if we were to prefer one of these, we could probably do it based on which type of attribute we want to lower. And, well, if we look here, actually, tell you what, because we have haste, we're going to go twice in a row, so it shouldn't matter. But I was going to say, if that is the case, then maybe we reduce its spirit, so that way, if it does get to attack again, it's going to deal less damage, but no problem, we can still take it out in one turn. And some Dark Essence, I mean, sure. Perhaps reason to also empty out our inventory of other things so that we can loot the stuff that drops from these guys. Okay, so Earth Elemental, this should be comparatively much easier, because, at least in this case, again, weakness to an element that Gloria has access to. So, unlike the Dark Elemental in that case, we can deal basically twice as much damage, if not more. Okay, and yes, I brought that up about the inventory space, because as you can see here, we don't have a ton of it. So in some cases, we might find that we're unable to pick up valuable items at the end of these encounters, so that's something to perhaps bear in mind. Okay, so now we're doubling up on these guys. Does, of course, mean from an item standpoint that, well, at the very least, we'll be getting the same types of items from them at the end, so maybe we won't have to worry quite so much about that. And both of them down there, still no problem. Okay, good stuff, and we're already on to round 6. This time, things looking much different. Okay, so several reptilians here. Seen plenty of Magmazards, and the Skelezards we saw a little bit of in the Miasmal Citadel. Let's take a closer look as to what we're going to want to do against these guys. The thing is, the Skelezard is most weak to fire, whereas the Magmazards heal to fire. So that's a little bit tricky. I'm thinking what we want to do here is perhaps take out Magmazards first, like this. Hopefully we can take them out in one turn. If not, then we will have to do water ability again. Yes, and unfortunately, one Magmazard did just barely hold on. So we'll do this again. It will damage the Skelezards a little bit. And again, our haste coming in handy there, because we can go twice in a row. Skelezard will get the chance to take another turn. And it cursed us. So that is not a good look. So we did, of course, load up on things to remove statuses like curses. But it will take a turn. Fortunately, we can take a turn to remove it now and then because we have haste. In our next turn, we can follow up and attack it again. So, if we weren't using haste, then that would mean we would spend a turn to remove the effect, and then could find that the Skelezard turns around and reapplies it, and then we could get stuck in a pretty nasty loop there. But fortunately, what with haste, not an issue. And remember, Skelezard this time around, when it's just the Skelezard, we're going to use Wildfire against it. And that is more than enough damage there. Notably, Gloria is also on roughly half MP here, so that is potentially another concern as well. But we're on to round 7, so we're getting close here. Rexosaurus is quick enough that although we do have haste, it will go in between Gloria's first and second turns here. So we would like to be able to take it out with one Twister, but that might not be enough. It does have a lot of HP. It is weakest to air, yes, but we'll see how much damage this does. Not quite enough. Now, notably, I could have sworn it said that we were not going to have our turn until after the Rexosaurus went, but never you mind. Okay, so in this case, we could either spend a turn to Twister it down, and that would certainly be enough damage to defeat it. However, I'm thinking this might not be a bad time to use some kind of MP restoration. As for whether we need an Ether or just a Mana Berry, we probably could get away with just a Mana Berry here. Does mean we'll take a little bit of damage, and I'll tell you what, that was a somewhat significant amount of damage at that. So that's not great. We could even, I don't know, we do have 2 turns in a row once more, so we could, say, take a turn to use some kind of potion, get back up to max or close to max HP, and then take it out on our next turn. And in the interest of not over-healing here, we can deliberately just use a better potion, and our regen actually gets us up to full exactly here. So, Twister should do it now. Okay, so then we are at higher MP, still max HP, into round 8. And this time, several elementals, and they are faster than us here, so they will go first. Fortunately, we missed one of them. However, actually, I think that was the Earth Elemental. And remember that we are resistant to Earth, so much so that we heal. So if anything, we would have wanted to have gotten hit by that. But anyway, so these guys are going to be a little bit tricky, because if we look at their resistances, we'll find that they are healing to one type of damage, very weak to another, and then the other 2 that Gloria can deal damage in, they just take no damage at all from. So I think we are, yes, going to need to target one at a time, and if we are to do that, then I think we finish with the Earth Elemental, because again, we can heal from its attacks, so we'll leave that one up the longest. And Gloria, then that means next would be, say, Razor Leaf on the Water Elemental. Now the Earth Elemental will go, and tell you what, we could deliberately just not even hit that reaction. Now this is an interesting place in which we find ourselves. This enemy cannot damage us. So this would be the best time to make a point of using any MP or HP restoring items. We did just do that in the previous fight, so I don't necessarily think there's much reason to do it. I'm looking at our HP, obviously that's full right now. If we had more MP that we felt like we needed, then this would be a good time to do it. But I think we're still high enough that we can probably get by. Let's just take it out. So that's one more round complete. And more essences, okay. Round 9, so second to last round here, and we have a Gloria Knot, and I was so caught off guard that I did not even hit the reaction on that, but tell you what, didn't matter, it was Earth Elemental, which meant that we actually wanted to take as much damage as possible, because we were going to heal from it. So, we've not seen these guys before. They look like the Witch Doctors from the Earth Temple, however, they are a little bit different, in that they are, well, I think we're going to find a little bit stronger. They are resistant to Earth, and weak to air. They also have 16 magic defense, so we might find it a little bit tricky to take this one out in one turn here. See how much damage this does, and the answer is yeah, definitely not enough. We will get to go once more before it goes again, so that is nice, but might there be another way to deal damage to it? If we were to say just use Liquid Lightning, would that deal more damage than our spells? I don't know if these technically count as attacks or spells in terms of when it's calculating the damage. Let's give this a shot, and it is maybe not that much better. But I suppose if this enemy is going to continue to hit us with Earth Elemental attacks, then that's not a terribly significant concern there. And there we go, it is down. That was the second to last fight. Remember, there are only 10 rounds in the individual person arenas, rather than 20 in the full party, so that means this should be the last one here. And okay, it is a Griffin! So, as we were saying before, things do get progressively more and more difficult. We saw at the very beginning we were fighting just one elemental at a time, but the Griffin is, or at least was, a mini-boss at the very beginning of Chapter 3, so to have one person rather than an entire party fighting it is a little bit alarming, so let's take a closer look as to what we want to do against it. It is very resistant to air and pretty darn resistant to earth. It won't take any damage from that. Fire is definitely the answer. It does, unfortunately, have 10 magic defense, so Probably still go with Wildfire here unless we feel like we need to throw on any kind of supporting potions here. Things like putting on Nulls with a Rainbow Juice, or if we even wanted to Noxious Palm it. I don't think that's going to be necessary. Let's see how much damage we can do with Wildfire. Oh, and I missed the reaction there. One other thing that is interesting with these single-person arenas is that, at least back in the Flash version of the game, typically found that the reaction bar at the bottom of the screen goes by much more quickly than it would have with the full party. I think that's probably less so the case with the Steam version. Okay, now Griffin is using haste, countering us a little bit here. So we will both go twice, but we take the next 2 turns, and that might be enough for us to take it out here. In fact, it is. Not bad at all. Gloria looking strong. And with that, we get another Griffin Feather, so that is something that only drops from the Griffins, and we were talking previously about how there was an item, in fact, it might have been Speedy Juices that we were looking to craft that required these, and we were saying, well, we probably don't want to do it when we only have one of these, but sure, we'll take the Feather, and we'll take the Speedy Juice as well. And that does mean that Gloria has now successfully completed the arena. The invisible announcer says, "Congratulations, fighter, you have won the tournament, apparently. Here, have a prize. Also, get out of here." Okay. So, let's take a look at what exactly that prize was. Gloria just picked up the Leaf Charm, which is a special item that Gloria won from the arena. Only she can equip it. It has 4 defense, 4 magic defense. Gives her the Cleanse ability, which is very similar, I would assume, to the Mass Cleanse that she has on her new staff. This one applies to everyone in the party, whereas I would assume that the normal Cleanse would be the same thing, just you can target one person at a time, which is not super helpful, just means that we can save some NP if we find that there's only one specific person that we want to cleanse at any given point in time, because remember, the Mass Cleanse, I think, used 34 MP, and so we'll blow through MP very quickly if we continue to use that, whereas this one is a way to save a bit on that side. So it's only usable by Gloria. We saw there were a few items that were only usable by certain people in the past, with specifically Elwian and Fern, but now that, well, this is specifically the prize for Gloria after winning her personal arena, that's fitting, I suppose. Also, +3 Spirit and Vitality, and fitting that it gives Resist Earth and Air as well, a little bit of that. So, that's something that we're definitely going to want to put on her, and why don't we make a point of doing that now? And why don't we get a post-tournament interview with our champion here? So, Gloria, how are you feeling? Do you want me to reveal another backstory segment? Yes, please. Very well. I think that I shall tell you about my brother. I bring him up because he has been on my mind lately. I don't miss him, but I do wonder what came of him. He joined the Guard, you see, at the same time you did, so I'm sure you've met him. His name was... Steely. Oh, yeah, see, we've met a Steely, yeah? Well, I did meet him. He was horrible. I hated him. Yes, he has that effect on people. Or had. I hated him too, and though it goes against everything I usually believe, I'm glad that he is dead. The world is a better place without such evil in it. He and I are related, but not fully. You see, we share a mother, but not a father. My father is a kindly man who wouldn't harm a fly. My mother's much the same. I've inherited much of my personality from them, but my brother... It is a grim tale. I don't know the details, and I've never cared to ask. I don't want to bring it up. But from what little I know, my mother was on a walk one day, and a bandit waylaid her, forced himself on her. You can figure out the rest. It ruined her for many moons. She was a wreck, or, so I gather. This was before I was born. She gave birth, as my parents, being the gentle souls that they are, felt that that was the only way that things could be. They felt that they had responsibility for the child violently thrust upon them by fate, and thought the least they could do was give it a proper, kind upbringing. Unfortunately, from an early age, the child showed strong signs of rebellion and would not listen to his parents. He was in charge as far as he was concerned, not them. They assumed this was just typical of youngsters, but he got no better, only worse. He became a vandal, bully. My parents decided for some reason to have another child. While he was born out of hate, I was born of love, and he couldn't tolerate this. He wanted to be the only child, and he wanted me gone. He hated how my parents and I actually got along, and he never let me have my peace while he was nearby. He is dead now, or so I have heard. My parents, upon hearing the news from your commander, smiled. I know it sounds cruel, but he truly was a demon child. But tell me, Mardek, can you confirm that he is indeed dead? I heard that the corpse was never found, and that it was based on only the word of a few guard recruits that they declared him dead. Yeah, see, about that. Well, he's dead. I saw him die with my own eyes. My friend Emma zapped him with a lightning bolt because he was trying to kill someone unjustly. He fell down and didn't get up immediately, meaning that he was definitely dead. I've not seen him since. I see. That does sound like him. I hope that you speak true, Mardek. Otherwise, I'm sure he'll want vengeance for that, and I can imagine it being quite strong, too. Anyway, thanks for listening, Mardek. It's good to get things like that off my chest, even if it doesn't change anything. Alright, and with that, we've successfully completed the arena run for Gloria, and we will be looking to follow things up with a new member of our party who will be next to take on the challenge. Tune in next time to find out.